Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Friday live stream. So we got some things to go over. It's going to be a very quick one today for a live stream because I want you guys to go from here to watch probably one of the best interviews I've seen in quite a long time. And this was over on Coin Bureau's channel. And it took a look. It was Nick interviewing a gentleman by the name of Jim Bianco. If you don't know Jim, he's pretty much a powerhouse on X. He is macroeconomist. He's also interviewed for one of the Federal Reserve governorships. And when Nick sat down and talked to him, a lot of things made a lot of sense. I'm just going to have you listen to like this first minute and listen to that. Then we'll get into the Paul Atkins when he talked, the SEC chair, that talks about how tokenization is the future, and it's much bigger than what he thought it was going to be. So just take a listen to this from Nick and Jim, and I linked this interview in the description. And I'll talk about just real quick why I think this is going to be such a good one. But just take a listen to this.
My question is, as we head into 2026, does this underperformance make crypto look like it could potentially be a value asset next year? Or is it potentially a harbinger of more pain to come?
I'm going to make my shot at the maxis. Stop attacking ETH. Continue to attack JP Morgan and the Fed. There's your enemy, the JP Morgan, the Fed, not ETH. If you want to continue to fight ETH, you're holding yourself back because you need ETH. ETH needs you. You don't need JP Morgan. You don't need the Federal Reserve. I actually did interview to be a Fed governor back in May of 2019. If I had gotten that job, I would be basically chaining myself to the door of the boardroom saying no one is allowed in if they want to cut rates. Larry Fink and Jamie Dimon are going to saddle up to you, make you nice, make you feel comfortable, give you a back rub. And then when the time comes, they're going to rip the heart out of your chest and they're going to take it all away from you and leave you with nothing. Do not trust them. That's why I said I'd rather you trusted ETH than if you trusted those guys. They're not in it to help you make a better system to put them out of business. They're in it to control you.
And that's just the first 60 seconds. So again, check out that interview. It was great. And he made a really good, well, he made a lot of good points actually. And one of the ones that Jim talked about, I thought was spot on, is he's like, why is everybody in crypto? Because he got in 2016, 2017, even before I got into it. And he said, why is everybody cowering down to these massive titans in the traditional markets? And he just told you what's going to happen with BlackRock, Larry Fink, and Jamie Dimon, the rest of them. He goes, at some point, they're going to extrapolate so much funds that they're going to kick you to the curb because that's what they do. And he goes, when I got in, and also when I got in as well, it was the same type of mission, which was to get those guys out and take over. The white paper from Satoshi was all about peer-to-peer transactions. And somewhere along the way, it became Gold 2.0, which is fine. You know, that's great, pump the bags and everything else. But he made a great point where he talked about the former creator of Uber, which was Travis Kalanick. And he told the story like when people would interview him as Uber was coming up, they said, hey, are you going to start to merge with all the taxi cab drivers because you have a superior software? And Travis said, no, I'm going to destroy them and I'm going to take over. And that's what we were supposed to do with crypto, digital assets, and decentralization. So, I mean, it kind of ticks me off that there are these fly-by-night operations that are going on, which are, telling you what you want to hear about, just don't worry, bull market tomorrow and 1,000x and whatever else. And you got great interviews like that just go unnoticed, which I got to tell you, Jim's a real one. And just take a listen to that. And he had some, he had some great points. But there is just, before you get into it, I will just say this, that one of the points that he makes, it's something that you should know about. The whole premise of what he was saying was like, look, so far, we've got gold at all-time highs, S&P 500 all-time highs, and Bitcoin hit an all-time high. I mean, for Pete's sakes, from 2022 to now, it was an 8x. It went from 15,000 to 124,000. And people say, where's the blow off top? And he made a good point about liquidity, and he was right. Global liquidity, as far as the M2 global money supply, is at an all-time high, roughly 103 trillion. The M2 money supply in the United States is also at an all-time high, 23. So when people talk about liquidity, he's like, it's here, it's already. We can get more, but we're at all-time highs, yet we're down 30%. And he talks about quantitative tightening. Yes, before it was in August 2019, just took a little bit of time. We did cut rates. He talked about QT, December 1st, we stopped QT. But even though quantitative tightening has stopped, which means that the Federal Reserve is not, they're not selling off their balance sheet. But he said, even then, we still hit all-time highs as we were going down. He goes, Bitcoin is a great product. Doesn't matter if it's sideways, doesn't matter if we're stopping QT and doing QE or going on with QT, we're still hitting all-time highs. But he did make a point about inflation, and he was right. He said, in that little snippet, you heard him say, hey, if I was the Federal Reserve chair, I would bar the door and say, we are not going to be cutting rates at all. And his premise, and it makes sense, is because he said, back in the day after the Great Recession, 2007, 8, and 9, he said we were under 2% from 2008 to roughly 2021. So the inflation rate was what the Fed wanted to see, and we kept it down there, even though during that time, for most of it, we were at 0 interest rates. Now imagine that. You're at 0 interest rates, right? And the inflation rate is staying below 2%. Now the core PCE came out. Yeah, came out this morning. It was at 2.9%, came out at 2.8%. So we're actually down year over year, but we're still above 2%. And he talked about PMI. He said, look, I know people talk about this, but even in 2017, 18, and 19, we were still above 50 as far as manufacturing PMI, if we're talking about business cycles. Also for services cycle, we were above 50, 2017, 18, 19. Yes, we were above, and now we're not, but I mean, it's not that thing. And he talks about how, Bitcoin pretty much tops out first, then you get the M2 and gold supply, or the money supply and gold supply. It's true, it's all right here. So again, great interview, take a watch for it. He's not a big believer in the 4-year cycles. That's why I like to watch people have different opinions from me. But when he talks about hey, this is what's gonna happen with the bear, and this is what's the bull, depending on this, and this, it made a lot of sense. So watch that interview. It's pretty great. Now, let's get to today's show, what I was talking about, which this was an interview on Fox Business. I don't know why the other publications or syndications don't really talk too much about crypto, except for probably CNBC, but usually it's Fox Business and they talk about it. And there was an interview here where we talked about how Operation Choke Point 2.0 is going on. And it's a pretty long one. It's about 7-8 minutes or so, not too bad. But you've got the Republican from Arkansas, House member French Hill. And he talks about how this was actually going on. It is a verifiable fact. And this is what the Democrats didn't want. They didn't want crypto and digital assets to be in the forefront of America. And I just took a look at this and I'm like, this is going to be bad when we have the midterms. But just take a listen to this. It's about a minute, and then it's going to roll into the Paul Atkins interview, which is about another 1.5 minutes. So just take a listen, and then we'll talk about.
Encourage banks through leverage, intimidation, guidance, verbal communication, email listing, to ban them from banking businesses that the Obama administration didn't favor, like gun dealers, for example.
I see.
And this is wrong when the federal government uses its authority to tell a private entity they can or cannot do business with someone just because of their a belief system that, doing business with a gun dealer is bad, doing business with an energy producer is bad because of the climate.
Well, this is a very good point, and it's obviously not what any of the voters or audience wants to see. They want to have their options open. Of course, it's a new day at the Securities and Exchange Commission with Paul Atkins at the chairman's role. I spoke with him yesterday on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange about now a new direction, and that is tokenization. Here's what he said, watch. The idea of tokenization and having investors own tokens of a larger blueprint of a company. Explain that to us. Where is this going, and what is tokenization?
Tokenization is the idea of using then smart contracts or tokens on-chain to be able to, that represent, say, an underlying security. And so then that tokenized security is a security and would be subject to SEC rules by law. But the idea is that if it's on-chain, on a blockchain, then there's much more transparency as to where it is. Right now, there's a bit of opacity as to, you know, who owns what, and where the company usually doesn't even know where its who its shareholders are, and where the shareholders reside, where the shares reside. So tokenization has the benefit of potentially having, instead of T+1 now trade date +1 for clearance and settlement.
Do you expect this is where financial services is going? Are the major banks and the brokers out there today moving increasingly toward tokenization?
Oh, absolutely. And it's the way the world will be.
Yeah, there you go. So I don't need to say anything else. There you have it. The SEC chair is pretty much just saying, yeah, tokenization is going to be huge. The question you have to ask yourself is, what does this mean for me as far as an investor? Well, I can't give you investment advice. Obviously, I'm not a financial advisor, but as a reminder, like we always talk about, just take a look at who does payments. And of course, if you're talking about tokenization of assets and you talked about securities, look no further than Robinhood. Robinhood used who? Yes, that's right. Layer 2 solution, Arbitrum. Also, which is the layer 1 solution, which is Ethereum. And you can take a look at that and say, well, that was securitized of assets. I think the bigger play is going to be, well, potentially the bigger play is payments. Payments is a multi-trillion-dollar business. And Visa didn't be Visa just overnight. And Visa is the one that is tracking all the on-chain transactions for USDC and UST and a couple of other nondescript different stable coins. But remember, USDC and USDT, or Tether and Circle, they are 92 or 93% of the entire stablecoin market. And what have they used? Well, the top ones are Tron at 3.4 trillion. I think this is by monthly, over 12 months, I should say. USDC, Ethereum, 2.9 trillion. Then Ethereum for Tether, Binance, and so on. And there's base down here at 359. But again, this is why I always say, just look for the best. The best. Binance, Ethereum, Solana, Tron. And that's where I think things are going. So I'm going to keep this short and brief. And that's where I think I will be, actually, I'm currently investing into those. And I'm also buying Bitcoin. Now, I am bearish short-term on Bitcoin and the entire altcoin market. I think everybody knows that by now. But I continue to buy, and we'll see where it leads us. And lastly, I will say, this is from Polymarket. Why I'm not a big, huge believer in 2026 Q3 or 4 really doing great for us. I think it's going to be a little bit of unknown, as it looks like the Democratic Party will probably flip the Republicans for the House seats. And this is over Polymarket, which, if you know anything about them, they're pretty good at predicting these types of elections. Now, it is a small volume. It's under 1 million so far as of November 3rd, 2026. But as time goes on, I think that's what's going to happen. If we get something like that, markets don't like ambiguity for that year. Now, the year after usually is a pretty good year post midterms. So midterms is coming up, 2026, 2027, usually a pretty good year, in 2028, even a better year. So we'll see where it goes. And then, damn it, lastly, I don't really talk too much about this, but if you're not using ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini or some kind of AI type of service, I think you're really missing out on a lot of different aspects of what it can do. And here's an example. This was, I don't know who Mark Kretschmann is, but I keep hearing stories about this. This guy right here went to the ER. Doctor did a physical examination, said, okay, well, your lower right abdomen is a little bit tender, no big deal. Take these antacids and maybe some type of medication for reflux, and then get out of here. He stuck his symptoms into ChatGPT because he had like this knife-like stabbing pain, and there was a little bit of a rash or something. And ChatGPT said, yeah, it looks like you are close to having a ruptured appendix. I need you to go right back now to the ER tell him you want a CT scan. This guy got a CT scan, found out that he was hours away from having appendicitis rupture. They got him into surgery and saved his life just because he put that into ChatGPT. So I know that's not something we talk about here as far as digital asset news, but I got to tell you, the AI play is really shaping up to be a pretty big thing. And I think that's why retail might not want to come back in the majority to a lot of altcoins and meme coins and nonsense and trash, because they see the adoption that's actually happening with AI. And they see the kind of adoption that, say, meme coins or metaverses or fill in the blank is doing. And they know that's not where I'm going to be. Anyhow, that's it for today. If you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing. What we talk about is time sensitive. Now let's go into a little Q&A, and I'll answer all your questions. And Liberty says, stick to Bitcoin. Sounds good to me. Let's see. This ought to be good. If you have any stories about misdiagnosing, I love these types of stories. I also love stories about insurance and how they have screwed people over left and right. As a reminder, I was actually medic in the military, and I became an LVN, an RN, then went into management, home health company nationwide. And yeah, I've been in healthcare for over 2 decades. Then I just went into real estate and pretty much retired after that. But I love stories like that. Looks like we've got one here. Yeah. At A1, I went to hospital in 2016, 3 and 2 weeks, finally got a CT, and they said another hospital. They sent me to Cleveland. 2 days later, stage 4 colorectal. Yeah, there you go. That's not awful as far as like problems with the hospitals. It's awful at stage 4. But hey, Rising, you're still here. Congratulations. In 2016, no less. Wow. That's pretty good. Let's see. I had to rewind. That was Grok, not chat. Yeah, okay. It doesn't, like you can use Grok or chat or whatever. I'm just saying use AI. If that guy used Grok, sure. I would assume that they're pretty much, they're standards across the board. No, Grok's, they just did a new metric where I think Grok outperformed ChatGPT and Gemini. So pretty good. Let's see. 0x says, Rob, can you swap Bitcoin to USDT and back to Bitcoin and iTRUST? This depends on if we're talking about custody services, which if you don't know, I'm a big believer that the scam artists are going to win, unfortunately. I think that we've got a lot of scammers that will target us, especially me, public all the time. And I think it's important that you don't just diversify your portfolio, but you diversify your safety measures. I think this is important. So me personally, I've got a couple of TANGEMs, a couple of ledgers, and I also have iTRUST custody, which there's no fee for that. And iTRUST custody uses the same custodial service that BlackRock for their ETF uses, as well as MicroStrategy, which is Coinbase Prime. So there's no charge for them for you to get custodial service through them. However, when you want to take it out, it's 1%, and you have to jump through some hoops to get it. But that's good because that way you won't have a scammer steal your seed phrase, steal your ledger, do a phishing attack, do a whatever attack, and get your crypto. So it's just one way to diversify. And of course, hopefully my ledger's held out or my TANGEMs, which are pretty safe. But to answer your question, as far as like swapping, in the custodial services, I do not believe that you can swap within. But if you have a traditional or a Roth IRA, you can sell and then get into something else that you want. So like, I don't know if you guys know this, but in America, there's a retirement account called Roth IRAs. You can trade within your Roth IRA and there's no taxes on it. Go figure that. So what does that mean? So let's say you got Bitcoin and you're like, well, I think it's going to go down. Maybe October 6th, you knew something no one else did. And you just sold on October 6th, you sold your Bitcoin and then you put it into USDT, which you can do that with a Roth IRA. Until you take it out of that account, there is no taxes on it. So what you could have done is you could have sold within your Roth IRA. You could have reinvested into whatever you wanted to, or waited till today or whenever and buy back into Bitcoin or Ethereum or fart coin. I don't know what you're into, but you can do something like that, and there's no taxes on it. So in and out, in and out. Yeah. Mary says Roth IRA is done, holding till 2030. Nothing wrong with that. Big monkeys here. That's great. How do you like your TANGEM wallet compared to Ledger? It's way better. Why is it way better? It's because like with Ledgers, it seems like well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't like the interface with it. I don't like the fact that, you have this clunky device that you have to connect. And I know there's like, there's a Bluetooth apparatus and you can connect it to your computer, but I don't like to even do that. What I like about the Ledger is that, first of all, the TANGEM card, and there's a link in the description where I go through the video of why I like TANGEM better than Ledger per se. I mean, I still have them both. But like when you set it up, it's super easy. It's not very complex. There is no mnemonic phrases unless you want those 12 or 24 words with a passphrase if you want to go down that route, or you just put in the card, your private keys in the card. But Rob, you've got your TANGEM, let's just say this is a TANGEM card. You've got your TANGEM card and you leave it at the bar like you usually do. And they're like, ooh, I got Rob's, like didn't say anything, but this is a TANGEM card. This is great. I don't know what this is, but I know there's some crypto on it. And then they go and they download the app. They still can't get it because they need your PIN code with your app to have it. Okay, so now they're like, well, but Rob, what if they steal your phone? They still need the card, the physical card, because it has whatever that acronym is for when you pay for things at like ATM or at the store, and you press it against it, GPC or whatever it's called. There's a little chip in there that transfers the information. So if they don't have your card and they have your phone, they still can't do anything. Here's the best part. Let's say, for instance, that they have your card and they have your phone. Somehow you left it both together. And for some reason, you have your TANGEM card with you and your phone. It's dumb. Even if they have that, first of all, they need to get in your phone. So they need that PIN code or your Face ID. And then they need the PIN for the app to get into TANGEM. So there you go. And that's it. Thank you, NFC. I couldn't remember it. NFC. I always want to say KFC, but that's not it. It's just the place where you can get really horrible food. Farrar says, Rob, thoughts on the start of 2026? We know the first couple of weeks normally shape the rest of the trading year. I'm not sure. There is a lot of opinions out there, and there's no shortage of those, that's for sure. I'm not going to give you mine because there's so many different variables that can come through. And, listen to Jim Bianco again talk about it. It wasn't just about like the next Fed meeting on December 10th can really set the tone for the next year. And he was talking about how important it was. It's not about if they're going to cut or not cut. It's about who is going with the Fed chair and who is dissenting. And he goes, if you have, an 8-4 or a 7-5 split, he goes, that means there's a dichotomy or a separation between what the Fed chair wants and what the governors want. And if that's the case, then there's going to be the same thing once Jerome Powell steps down, a new person steps in. And he goes, you're going to have some type of infighting moving forward. So he goes, it's a very turbulent time. So to answer your question, I don't know. And hopefully we'll get some more data. Now, I still believe in the 4-year cycles, even though people don't believe it whatsoever. And it's true. I mean, like, I get the whole point. I get the quantitative easing, the quantitative tightening. I get with the PMI and the business cycle and, how it's regressed. And it wasn't 4 years and it's actually 5 years. But there's a bigger thing too there underneath it. And we've talked about this, which is that if you just take a look at midterm years, presidential elections every 4 years, and usually the market does pretty good in those years. In the midterm election time, especially if there's a lot of volatility and there's a lot of dissent between the two parties, which you're going to see a massive amount this time, midterm years, especially going to Q3, Q4, are not great for the markets because the markets don't know which way things are going to go. Also, I think since, and this is just me guessing, since the Democrats will probably win the House, look for Trump to be impeached. At least they're going to try again. And then once we do that, all hell breaks loose again. Yet again. So that's that. I will say, in the long run, this is why, like I say, I'm short-term bearish, but I buy Bitcoin every single day. And I buy other alts. Well, now I'm doing it every other day. I still have conviction. I just don't know when it's going to go up. I don't think anybody else does either. Let's see. Just a pleb, Mary, but I think ETH has another leg up. Sure, why not? Tom Crown, or not Tom Crown. Tom Lee thinks that we're going to get to, I think it was $63,000 ETH or some crazy number. You know, I make fun of Tom Lee, but what if he is right? So, yeah. Looks good, appreciate it. Oh, you can't fix the bug in TANGEM because the firmware cannot be updated. This was an issue a long time ago. This is when they, unfortunately, TANGEM rolled things out and they listened to their customers a little bit too much who wanted this seed phrase. And I was like, I don't want a seed phrase. But they did that and there was a problem with their firmware and they had to, it was either recall, there was a problem with the firmware and it didn't affect anybody, but it could have. And they just either rerouted it or rechanged everything. But now you can still have a mnemonic phrase. I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. But yeah, TANGEM did fix it. We covered it in one of our other 1,000 videos we've done on it. JD, does it matter if they impeach Trump? No, it doesn't, but it makes the market skittish. I mean, look at the markets themselves, right? We've got a pretty much of a lock for a rate cut. And look at what happened to Bitcoin today. So it's like, I think anything scares the market, anything. They're so skittish. That's just how it is, especially traditional markets. Like I wish people could just start in crypto and then go to traditional markets because, they're like, wow, 20% volatility, that's something. But now you guys are concerned about 1%? Come on. Oh, man. I can see Binance getting 60K before ETH. Wow, that's something. We'll see. Tom Lee has 10.5 billion in ETH, so of course he's going to be bullish on ETH. Wouldn't you be? Never been a fan of ETH, Bitcoin. I'm a fan of ETH. I'm a fan of what it does. I'm not a fan of all the different attacks and vectors and issues that it has. You think they could, change that over the last 8-10 years or something? Okay, everybody, that's it for today. I think I answered all the questions. I want to get out of here before 30 minutes. So again, watch that interview with Nick and Jim Bianco. Fantastic. I don't know why it's only got 8,000 views. It's like probably one of the best ones I've seen in the longest of time. So go watch that. That's it for today. We'll see if we do one tomorrow. I got some things going on, but thanks so much for stopping by. I appreciate you. Like and subscribe, all that great stuff. See you in the next one.